Hello everybody, this is going to be the Popout tutorial. In this tutorial we are looking at the perspective option and kind of working and creating a picture frame, but our main goal is to make it feel like an image is popping out of a picture. So what you need for this tutorial is you're going to need a image of a human or of a animal that shows some sort of movement. So, for example, a human running, a human jumping, a dolphin jumping out of the water. You can see here that my elephant looks like it's moving to the right-hand side of the picture. So that's what we are going to work with. So again, feel free at any point in time to pause this video. Once you have your picture, make sure you open it up in Photoshop, and that's where I'm going to begin this tutorial. So you have your picture, you have it loaded into Photoshop. Next thing that we need to do is we need to duplicate this background a couple of times because we're going to be changing a couple different things with the actual image itself, and we need some extra copies of this. So what we're going to do is over in our layers panel, we're simply going to right click on it and we're going to say duplicate layer, and I'm going to click OK, and you'll do it one more time. So right click, duplicate layer, and select OK. So I should have, or you should have, 3 layers, and it doesn't matter the name of the layers right now, but you should have 3 layers that look exactly the same. The next thing we need to do is we need to set up one more layer to actually create the picture frame on. So I'm going to click down here at the bottom. Remember, there's a trash can to delete a layer, to make adjustments to a layer, but the one right here is our new layer option. So I'm going to click new layer, and I'm going to move it down 1. So your layer options should look exactly like mine. So again, the names don't have to be the same, but over here you should have your image, you should have a blank layer, and then you should have 2 of your images. I'm going to rename layer 1 by simply double clicking on the text, and I'm going to type in frame. So just to let me know that this is my picture frame layer that I'm going to work with. Now, the next part we need to do is I don't want a background. I just want it to be a plain black background. So I need to create a background on this. And right now I have an image on here. So if I click on this thumbnail of the actual layer and I go over here to the swatches panel, I want to make this into a black background. So whatever is on the bottom, it's going to delete to this background color. So if I want this red, I can make this red. I can make it green. I can make it whatever color I want. But for me right now, I'm just going to use black. And if yours looks like this, where the black's on top and white's underneath, just hit this double arrow icon and it will flip them around. But I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click on my thumbnail and I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard. And then I will push delete, which your delete button is right above the arrows. I'm going to hit my delete button. And if you do it correctly, it should turn into whatever color you have in the background color here. So we're getting ready to start creating our picture frame. So what I need to do is, because I'm working with this layer, I need to turn off the visibility of this top layer so I can see what I'm working on. So I'm going to click this eye and turn it off. And again, you won't see any changes here yet because obviously the layer down below is exactly the same. So you're not going to see anything. But when I start drawing on here, you'll be able to see what I draw on the frame layer now. So my picture frame, I have a couple different options for my picture frame. The first option for my image, and it's going to depend on everybody's images. My image, the elephant's moving to the right. So for my picture, I want to keep the left-hand side of this picture, and I'm going to stop wherever I want my image or whatever part of my elephant that I want extended out of the picture frame. So for me, if I'm doing it this way, I'm going to stop right at his shoulders so it looks like his feet are out of the picture frame. My other option is, if I undo this, is if I create a box down here, I can make it look like his whole body is standing on top of the picture. And you'll see here as we go along, you'll be able to see what I mean when we start doing a transform. So if you like it, where the image is actually standing on top of the picture, you can go back and change it because it's going to be the same method. It's just a different rectangle that you have to draw. So I'm going to undo that and I'm going to go back and draw my rectangle going this way. So as I have this set up right now, my elephant's going to be extended to the right hand side. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to edit and stroke. And what that is going to do is that is going to paint essentially this line or create a frame on this line. So I'm going to keep it as 12 point and you can change it to whatever color you want. I'm going to keep mine as white and I'm going to click OK. And notice now it looks like a picture frame. So I have my frame in here. I have my photograph in here, and you can kind of see how the elephant is going to start actually physically popping out of the picture. So I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go to select, deselect, and you have to do this portion of it, and I will show you why here in a second. So you have to go up to select, deselect. You should not see any marching ants in this picture frame at all, in your photograph at all. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the perspective of this picture frame. And if you remember when we were drawing an Autodesk Inventor, how we were doing the isometric sketch and it looked like objects were going away from us, that's essentially what we're going to try to do here. And the first thing we need to do to be able to change the perspective of this frame, I need to right click with my mouse on the actual thumbnail of this frame. So I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to say select pixels. And what that does is it selects everything that I have drawn on this frame or on this picture or on this layer. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit, transform, perspective. And I get all these squares going around my frame. Now, for mine, because mine's popping out to the right, I'm going to make it look like this side is actually shorter. And when I do that, it will look like it's going to twist the picture frame so it's headed in this direction. So it's kind of twisted. So I'm going to just click this and I'm going to drag down like this. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to click the check mark on here to kind of finish that. And now you can see that my picture frame is going out. Now, mine looks a little bit off. I have a lot of image right here, but not a whole lot right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my move icon and I'm going to kind of position this a little bit more. And I might have to go up to like edit, transform and scale to make this look a little bit smaller. And I'm going to do that. And then I'll use my move icon just to bump it up a little bit. So I made it look like the picture frame was a little bit extended out a little bit more. So again, I'm going to go, once I have it positioned, I'm going to go up to select, deselect to take a look at it. Now remember, this white line will not be here, but you can essentially start seeing that how your image is going to show up. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start erasing some of this background, and we're going to use a clipping mask for this. So same thing we did before we did a perspective view. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to right click on my thumbnail and I'm going to say select pixels. So it's going to select this frame. And then on my keyboard, I'm going to select the inverse. So I can either go up to edit, select inverse, or select and then inverse. Or you can see here the shortcut for it is Shift Control I. So I'm going to do that on my keyboard, or like I said, you can go up to select inverse. So I'm going to do Control Shift I, and notice where all the marching ants are now. It selects everything but your picture frame. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my paint bucket. And my paint bucket, if it's not shown up, it's underneath your gradient tool on the left-hand side. I'm going to select my paint bucket tool. And I'm going to click anywhere on the outside of this. So I'm going to click here. And I'm going to undo that real quick. And I'm going to change here. So it shows up white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Q. Okay, so now that we got our picture frame set up, the next part that we're going to do is we are going to actually start deleting some of this outside area. So what I'm going to do is, like I did before, is I'm going to right click on this frame and I'm going to say select pixels. And I'm either going to go up to select, inverse, or I can just hold shift, control I, and you can see the shortcut command here, which is what I'm going to do. So I have my frame selected, and we want to select everything but this frame because we're going to delete a lot of this picture. So I'm going to do control shift I, and I'm going to release everything. And then I'm going to hit Q, which is our quick mask. So if you do it correctly, you can see that my picture frame is now pink. That is perfect. That's what you want. So you want your picture frame to be pink. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my paint bucket. I'm going to go over to my picture and I'm going to select anywhere outside this picture frame. So I'm going to select somewhere out here. And if you do it correctly, it should also turn pink. And I'm going to hit Q one more time. And on my keyboard, once I hit Q, I'm going to come down to background copy and I'm going to hit quick mask. So what I'm doing is I'm saying that I want all of this that was highlighted pink. I want it to be black, or I want it to cover up everything in this layer. So I'm going to hit this button. And if you do it correctly, don't panic. Everything should be your background color on here, except for what you have inside your picture frame. So once you have that, you're going to go up to your background copy 2, and we're going to select what we want popping out of the image, and then we're going to do a clipping mask again for it. So you know how to use your selection tools. You can use your quick selection tool. You can use your magnetic lasso tool. For me, I'm going to use my quick selection tool. And what you really need to focus on is what is being outside the picture frame. So can I select his body way back here? Yes. Does it matter if I do it? Absolutely not, because it's going to be in the frame, the picture frame itself. What I need to concentrate on and be precise on is the outside and what I want to keep on this. So I'm going to move down and I'm going to try to select his feet. And again, it's going to be tough depending on what tool you have. So I'm going to come up here, select his head, and it looks like this part's good. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit to get his tusk. And again, I don't expect it to be perfect, but you should know enough of the selection tool to make it better. So you can see here, I kind of went a little bit overboard here. So up on top, I'm going to use my negative and I'm going to select this. And I'm going to add a little bit to his head so his head doesn't look cut off. But again, you could take your time to do a little bit more. Because of this tutorial, I'm not going to go through and kind of try to get every single piece that I need. So I'm going to zoom out now. So I have zoomed out a little bit too far. So I have now my elephant. I have my elephant selected. If I want, maybe I want to keep this portion up here. So I'm just going to highlight some of this stuff up here. And again, you can use your selection tool for it. You can use a bunch of different tools that you know how to do this. So now that I have this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to hit layer mask. I notice that kind of looks weird now. I'm going to go back and I could put the ground in, or I can just remove this altogether. But if I zoom out now it looks like the elephant is coming out of the picture frame. So next thing I need to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of texture in this background, so it's just not a plain background. So I'm going to go into my gradient tool, and right now I have it going from light to dark. You could do the center. It's totally up to you. But once I have my gradient tool, I'm on my background layer. Whatever direction you go from. So again, if I start here, this is going to be my white to the dark over this corner. I'm going to do a diagonal. And just gives me a little bit of a texture of a background. So that is the Popout tutorial. That is working with perspective, which you could be using on your promotional design for your final project. You can make a box like this. But again, this is working with perspective, with the clipping mask, still working with the selection tools to create an object that looks like it's coming out of a picture frame.